What is going on, everybody? So today I've gathered you here today to get your advice, and here's my cat. She's also joining us too. She's gonna give me some advice. She's gonna go back to sleeping on her blanket. Oh nope, she's gonna try to headbutt the microphone. Anywho, while she's causing chaos, the reason that I've gathered you here today is because I would like your guys' assistance in helping to compile the new player guide. So my thought with this is if as you guys have all been new players at one point, what's something that you wish you did or you wish you started to know right as you started the game? We did our returning player guide yesterday, which I think was a bit easier because we're focusing more on like what's the big chapter updates, but as a brand new player without, becoming overwhelmed, what information do you think is most important for people to see, for people to hear, and so on and so forth? How's it going, Shadow Hulk? So, kind of my thinking process so far, the biggest tip that I am thinking is focusing on making sure you get the Mages Guild and the Fighters Guild right away. That way, you're working on both of those kind of passively as you play the game. But I wanted to hear first important for you as you start the game. Because even if I have it listed on my cheat sheet, I still want to hear what you guys think because you might be thinking about it from a different angle. How's it going, Jason? Hopefully ESO isn't dead. Well, it can't be dead. I'm on here right now. I've got my little torch out. Hopefully the torch. I actually still need to get my daily login rewards. This is the first time I've logged in today. So feel free to ponder that long question. The biggest thing I think to know is what information would you like to have known when you started that you think is essential? The other thing that I'll probably highlight too importantly is like which zones are, how do you play ESO in chronological order? I don't think it's necessarily essential, but I think when I hear from a lot of new players, they don't necessarily know what to do. And the casual response of just go anywhere you want, people don't really like that as much. Researching traits, excellent suggestion. Let me whip out my notepad here. I actually still have my notes from the last. Here's a question. What would you tell people who made a character? Maybe it was something goofy like a Nord Nightblade. What would you tell to them? Would you tell them you should restart this character? Should you tell them they should play how they want? I was trying to figure out how I wanted to approach that topic, but I wanted to get your guys' perspective on that too. Like, what if they're building something that seems a little bit off, but that's what they want to play? What do you guys think about stuff like that too? Rates, zones. Pick Stam or Mag. Good point. Probably talk to about champion points versus levels. Point. Join a guild. I'll probably also highlight the act or participate in events again, even though I did it yesterday. I just think it's so essential to actually participate in events, even if you're low level. All good stuff. Utilizing the zone guide. Also gonna switch this because your guys' chat doesn't seem to want to pop up on Streamlabs for some reason. See if refreshing it will make it work. I suspect probably not because Streamlabs seems to hate YouTube for some reason. What else are we thinking? Mechanics like bash, interrupt, off balance for 2x. Good point, like core combat mechanics. I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain that. I have to look to see if any guides or anything kind of easily explain like the bash mechanics, the interrupt and off balance in a more digestible way than how I would describe it. It is not popping up. Thanks, chat. There we go. Not fake queuing in vet content. I don't know if I'll put something like that in, Dave. I'm trying to keep it, like if you're a brand new player, what are the first things you should do? I saw someone that didn't know you could zoom in on the app beyond the zones and couldn't figure out where the quests were trying to tell him to go. I think questing is a good one. I could also highlight that in the zone guide too. So I'm also trying to keep this around 25 minutes ish. Settings, enable timers, percentages. Yeah, I could do like a quick helpful settings to change. I also think it's also helpful to just always see your bar and stuff. Sometimes I turn it off when I'm trying to look more cinematic when I record a video, but sometimes I just feel like it's nice to see. Heavy attack builds can get you through 99% of the content. I think that Leone, I think I'll probably make a separate build on stuff like that, like easy endgame builds, just so that I don't want this video to become too daunting for new players, if that makes sense. Like I want to try to keep this concise. Like you're a brand new player who's just loaded up ESO. I want you to know things without becoming like overwhelmed to where you're like, oh my god, this game has so many things, I'm never going to be able to do it. Surveys, the amount of people I've heard destroy them, like what? It's true. I could probably touch upon like surveys and treasure maps. Surveys and treasure maps. Good point. Roleplay versus MMO setup. I think honestly, I don't know if people use different setups based on like what they're doing. I always just kind of unless I'm recording a video and I want it to look cinematic, then I'm just kind of like, hey, here's my stat bar. You guys can look at it. Following a build guide. That's a good point too. Build guides. Because what I usually suggest, Kirby, for people is always try to find. So say you're on update. Say they're watching this in the future. We're on like update 40 or whatever. What I usually suggest to people is type in Templar, PvE, Stamina, update 40, parse, and then they can then see what they're wearing or what they're using, and then they'll get suggestions based on where they are. Because the problem, realistically, with the YouTube algorithm is you type in Stamplar PvE, you get videos from 2 years ago recommended all sorts of gobbledygook, So I think as long as you let people know, like, hey, just make sure you're putting in like the active patch number or what we're on, you're gonna still get good suggestions based on that. I think that's what's most important. Because I've been there where I've like, it's the same with money making guides. I'm like, this isn't really gonna work for you, except to hit upon. Skill point resources. I remember struggling in the beginning for skill points. Good idea. Just like a how to get skill points. All great suggestions. That also kind of goes into what you were saying, the HGP. I asked to put in this frame here because this is like a cheap Walmart frame, and it was a cheap Walmart poster. Don't buy respec scrolls. Good point. You can use the armory, which actually probably deserves its own little point. Or you could always use your gold too. Or use gold. What else were you thinking? I am relatively new, so if you have any specific questions, I might be able to give you an idea of what a newish player might think. Good point. Like, what length of video do you think is appropriate? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? So, Chris, and we talked about daily routine, so we're going to throw in mount upgrades in there. How's it going, Steven? Avoid crown store stuff. I'll probably touch upon like what's actually good in the crown store, which to me is honestly the merchant, the banker, and I'll be honest, I rarely, if ever, pull out the banker. But that's the biggest question I have too, is like how long do we think is a good video length? The undaunted skill line. Oh, the assault skill, and that's what I thought you meant. And the easiest way I believe to get the assault skill line is, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, because it should take you to what, level 3? If you do the that Cyrodiil starter quest, doesn't that take you to level 3? Can somebody correct me if I'm wrong? Like, it'll take your assault and your support to level 3. Quest. Yeah, I know that Dots does like a 90-minute video. I don't think I could do something quite that in-depth because I mean, he has in-depth videos on like he'll spend like almost like 30 minutes talking about class, race, and stuff. And while I think that that's great, I just don't think that that's something that I would really do. Just because I like to keep everything more, I don't want to say XP except guards. Do not attack guards. Yes, level 3 if you don't skip. Because I think, like, honestly, like, in 45 seconds saying, like, you know, you can get skill points from doing X, Y, and Z. Generally, DLC zones give you more skill points, but zone story quests as well as guild line story quests also give XP, but the quests generally take longer, and, you know, base game zones don't always give, you know, a skill point every zone story quest. You know, you can get them faster by, you know, killing the public dungeon boss. You know, stuff like that. I think that gives you a really good condensed version without spending like, you know, 5 minutes talking about skill points. 10 to 15 minute videos are great to be able to refer back to when I forget things. It's a good point. And I think a lot of these points can be done relatively quickly, because I think our video yesterday, on the returning player guide, that was... Why does it not tell me how long the video is? Alright, YouTube content creator thing. 24 minutes and 42 seconds. If you want to make one beginner essential videos and then an extended version, I think you could hit both types of viewers. I think my thing though too is like kind of what I did with the other video for the returning player guide, is like, while I would talk about ways to like farm XP, in the description below I would also put like, here's an in-depth XP guide. You know, that way it's, you know, the people who know about experience and where to go for it don't have to hear me yammer on about it. Yes, well, that's a good point. And what you're talking about, Z Gaming, actually also applies to leveling up skill lines too, so I'm gonna throw that in there too. Leveling armor / skill lines. So I'll chuck that in there. I'm actually taking notes on my phone because it's easiest actually to record on my, or to put notes on my phone so that I can put my phone like propped up against my monitor when I'm recording so then I can reference it back to it. That one was great and easy to understand. Thank you, Steven. My fear is like I don't want it. I have two fears. One is the total length of time will become off-putting to players to watch, and the second fear is I won't expand upon specific points enough to where it makes sense to someone who doesn't know anything. That's kind of the two varying like levels of problems that I'm trying to work around. Because a returning player guide is easier because you have a general idea of the Elder Scrolls Online, whereas these people may be walking out of, the tutorial area and they're like, what? I don't know anything. So, and I don't want to, patronize them or anything, but I feel bad when people leave my videos confused. And so that's what I also try to avoid. But I also don't want to over-explain things to where the video becomes bloated. But two, I can always, of course, put in things like timestamps like I did in that last one. I've found easier ways to put in timestamps to YouTube, thankfully, because the previous method sucked. You could do a separate video for topics that need more explanation. Definitely. And I also have ones that I could also link below like I did the other one. And even in that video yesterday, like I linked to guides from other. Do you guys think that like set collecting is a bit too on the nose for a beginner guide? Do you guys think that that's a little bit too, kind of in the future? Or do you think that that's something that could be like digestible? I'm sorry, Kirby. I can't remember if I asked it as a negative or a positive. Do you mean no, like it should be talked about, or no, it's a bit too complex? That's my fault. I couldn't remember how I phrased the question at the end. I wish someone mentioned set collecting when I started, but most video, yeah, and I think I'll put that in then because I think it's important, at least on a surface level, to start talking about. I'll add that to the list. I think they should be aware of set types, mythicals, helms, just to show possibilities. Set collecting deserves a mention. You'll need gear to remember to bind it. It's a good point. Might be a bit much for beginners, but we could explain the subject. I think too, like just talking about like even if you deconstruct it, you're still getting it in your sticker book and what that necessarily means, for you in the future. It's because you out-level it quickly, right? I don't think it's necessarily that. I think the general assumption is that you're not getting anything that's super important as a low level, therefore most people just don't touch upon it. Like, yeah, you could be, over in Glenumbra, but, what set are you going to use from Glenumbra in the future that you're going to be reconstructing? As a recent beginner, sets wouldn't help me because you progress so fast. I just wanted gear at my level. I think that's important too, is what should you be equipping to yourself? What should you be wearing? I think a lot of times too, people don't quite fully understand like what they should be binding to themselves. So I think if I talk about like what you should be wearing and then kind of what happens when you either deconstruct / equip it to yourself, that will kind of. It's actually it's not something that's been around since the entirety of the game. I don't remember what update released it, but it's definitely very helpful to know. I almost feel like I should make so I did a returning player guide, and then this will be the new player guide. I almost feel like a mid-game player guide would be helpful, where it talks about like trading, how to farm veteran content, how to get into endgame trials, how to make potions, what consumables you need. I almost feel like there should be like a separate video for that almost too. Because I think there's just so much to know. I mean, realistically, just look at how many zones in ESO there are. And then you factor in, like, each one's got different sets, each one's got different content, each one's got different dungeons and trials and rewards and things. It's like, you got different types of currency, you got Telvar, Alliance, points, writ vouchers. You know, there's just so much stuff to learn that it's hard to, like, digest it all at once. They should deconstruct weapons and gear, selling and sell it to the vendor, and to research every time you can. It's a good point. Deconstruct stuff instead of selling to merchants or destroying it to level crafting or skill lines to collect mats. This is a good point. There's a lot to know. I have been playing since the Witches Festival, and I still learn so much every time I play. That's kind of the other balance that I'm trying to, like, work around is, you know, you just have so much to learn. I'm a returning player, but it's been so long since I've played, I may as well be a new player. Because, like, on its surface, I generally don't suggest that new players, like, go out, get training gear, and do all this stuff, because then you're going to out-level the training gear, you're relying on another player. I don't like encouraging people, you know, as soon as you start a game to start relying on other people, you know, to help you. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what capacity to mention consumables. Maybe something like, don't feel like you need to hoard your XP potions. You can use XP potions and scrolls, you know, as much as you want, essentially. You know, you could purchase them for gold. Campaign differences and how to leave them. I got stuck for a few days in Cyrodiil. Maybe I could do like a quick touch on of like Cyrodiil versus, like, close my notepad. And then Battlegrounds. I could touch upon that too. Battlegrounds, Imp City. Do you think it would be a little too complicated to go into, like, Telvar, Alliance, Point? Yeah, I mean, I guess I could touch upon it. I mean, especially because we'll have, you know, Telvar, AP, writ vouchers. I think it's just worth mentioning, you know, maybe not like, you know, what you need to buy with it, but just explaining, like, Imperial City has its own currency called Telvar. You know, Alliance points come from, you know, basically PvP kills and doing PvP quests. And then writ vouchers come from crafting quest. Crafting quest. Travel to player features. Yes. Movement. Travel to players. Not places. Players. I was also stoked when I was getting armor that nerfed incoming enemy crits, and I found out that NPCs don't crit, and as a non-player, I was equipped foolishly. I think talking about, like, traits is helpful. This is the Panther Fang Chapel. This is actually all a hand-built dock, though, Ryan, so, like, I built all of this. This is not the traditional part of the house, because this is all handmade. You would actually start all the way back here. I could touch upon that too, 42, like when I talk about like which traits to research, like which traits are actually helpful for different types of content. Yeah, this is the actual, like, Panther Fang Chapel part. Nice, looks cool. Thanks, Ryan. This is my little inside, my little Hammer of Valandrone, one of my proudest achievements. What else are we thinking? And I'll read to you kind of what we have so far. So we have joining the mages in the fighter guild, traits, researching, understanding the difference between zones, picking your attribute points into mag or stamina, CP levels versus traditional levels, joining a guild, participating in ESO events, have fun on a character, don't feel like you have to, change around to be the meta. I should also say this isn't necessarily in any order. Utilizing the zone guide as well as understanding quest differences, side quest, daily quest, main story quest, settings to change, survey and treasure maps, build guides, daily/daily routines, how to get skill points, armory resets, using the way shrines, using the armory, doing the intro to Cyrodiil quest for easy PvP levels, leveling armor/skill lines by using different mixtures of heavy, medium, and light, / putting different skill lines on your bar to level them up faster, set collection / deconstructing / trait researching, what you should be wearing, cryo versus battlegrounds versus M-City, Telvar AP versus Writ vouchers, and moving to other players to help get to places. That would be good too, Steven, is like daily to-do quest. The only thing that's hard with dailies to do is like they fluctuate so much. Like, for example, it used to be really profitable to do like High Isle daily quests, and now it's like not really worth doing. So it's always hard to like give a prediction as to like which zone or which DLC daily quests are worth doing. Generally, I suggest that people just do the most recent DLCs, like the top 5 most recent DLCs. That's not the best metric, but it's the best that I can give out going forward, like 5 years. Like in 5 years from now, I would still say that, probably those zones, like the 5 most recent ones, are good. But some will always be good. Like I think Blackwood will always be good just because of the Frostbite set, as well as the motives and the furnishing plans are also too, as to like when I talk about the difference between main story missions, side quests, daily quests. I'll have to figure out like the order I'm going to talk about things too, because that's going to be the other tricky part is which information is the most important to start with, versus kind of go throughout the period of time. Anyone have any more suggestions though, like what they think is missing, anything else they think would be helpful to add into the video, other bits and bobs of information? I think the other thing I wanted to talk about too is like the collections, as like the appearance stuff, like that you probably have like a bunch of random gobbledygook that you can like equip to your character, so you don't have to look like like a level 3 RuneScape character who just left Tutorial Island. I still haven't started dailies, but with limited time to play, it's hard to pick what's the most important to do. Unfortunately, that's kind of just a common theme. What I would suggest though, Steven, is do your daily writs. I would suggest either doing them in Vivec, or I personally do them in Somerset. Do your daily writs. Even if you're not a max level crafter, you can pick them up and turn them in very quickly. You literally pick them up right here inside of Alinor, and you turn them in right here. So it's similar if you're in Vivec City, same kind of concept, where you pick them up and then you turn them in relatively close to the crafting stations. I personally just prefer Alinor. But Vivec is also a free-to-play zone now. You can purchase Vardenfell for free in the Crown Store. I like doing crafting writs in Blackwood. I've never done them in Blackwood. I know that I know where the vendor is, but I don't actually know where the turn-in place is. What are writs good for? You can buy some pretty good stuff with it. Like you can get well, let's talk about the traditional writs, like the actual writ turn-in quest. It gives you a good chunk of gold. If you do all of them, I believe it's 5,000 gold just for turning in all of them. You get experience in all the skill lines if they're not maxed out. You get a chance to get gold materials, and you get a chance to get writ books, which can be used to then do a crafting quest to then get writ vouchers. It would be nice to have pets that be more useful than to just look at. I 100% agree with you. I actually reached out to the developer or one of the developers, to see if they could assist me in fixing the non-combat pets. There's writ quests. The daily quest writs are the thing that you pick up from a board. You know, for example, if you're over here in Alinor, I'll take you there. You know, real quick. You just pick them up, turn them in, you get a bunch of rewards. Very quickly to do, very easy to do. But you can also get those writ books. You've probably seen them floating around. That's like the Imperial Charity writs or the traditional ones. Like the blacksmithing writs, the jewelry writs, etc. You do those, basically it's make me this of this quality, and then you can then turn that in and get, excuse me while I get lost in Alinor, because it all looks the same to me. But these are the writ quests, and you can see that this is the equipment one and then the consumable ones, but you can do them all at the same time. If I make furniture, is it bound to me? It is not. You can then sell it to anyone you want. Way Shrine, bank stations, and writ turn in all close together. Have we got any more for the next? Non-combat pet interactions is all I want. We already have combat pets. What I suggested is make non-combat pets have a purpose, like a companion. Maybe not like to where they actively fight in combat, but maybe if you take your non-combat pet around, I have this one out for some reason, he levels up and then gives you like a permanent stat buff, like 2% increased damage because you had him out and you did X amount of activities with him. Stuff like that, you know. My record for doing all 7 writs in Vivek is 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Challenge laid down, Jake. Well, I could beat you if I had everything pre-crafted. That's another thing you could do with your writs. You can actually have all the items pre-crafted. A lot of people I know that do crafting writs on multiple accounts actually do that. They will have all of their items pre-crafted on a character, so they just go pick them up and turn it in. How about what to craft to make money? I still don't even know what to do from outside of pots. I don't know, Chris, if I'll do that in a video that's in a little bit introductory. I think that's getting into something that's going to kind of start to confuse people. My record, or hang on, I read that one. Free housing for each character, so you could spend gold on... Oh, bank and bag space. That'd be nice, but I was asking about the next update for this year. We don't know a whole lot, except that they're teasing 2 things that we've wanted for forever. Basically, all but confirming one is a class, and then one is going to be something else. Make money, sell the crafting materials and modus. Unfortunately, K-Pro, if you're on console, selling gold materials is very, very difficult. I could do like some easy what's the word I'm looking for? Easy gold making methods that don't require it, or I could just point to a video that I did that expands on them all. Because I think I have a top 5 gold making video that doesn't require Guild Trader. I would like to see a bard. I don't think it's going to be a bard. I think it'll be a little bit more magical. Maybe like a druid, honestly. But we'll see. Reveal hasn't taken place yet. Should be sometime this month. Yeah, I think it'll be about the middle of January. That's usually when they do them, but they also like to do this thing where they release information like days before they do it, not weeks before they do it. Have you ever tried starting a new character and playing without using your account, champion points, etc.? I think it'll bring back the horrors new players face, especially with resource unavailability. So I have not done that before, but my one of my friends that has been on some of the streams has, to just kind of go through the new player experience. It's spellcrafter. Yeah, but it's not confirmed yet though. So we'll see. Isn't the warden basically a druid? Yeah, kinda. I think it'll be something a little bit more evil because you have like the necromancer, which is like more of an evil class. I think you'll have like a hybrid like conjurer type class where it's like similar to the Necromancer, and that it has abilities that if used inside a town will be illegal. Because I think like it's a little bit lopsided that basically you have a Templar, a Sorcerer. You know, the only real evil-esque class is basically a Necromancer. So I always thought that they were going to add something new that, you know, more illegal type skills in cities and whatnot. But I think it's going to focus on like alteration magic, mysticism magic, more conjuration, stuff like that. I need to add a class change. I want to make my main a sorcerer from a warden. I don't think they'll start all over again. Hag Raven, Dark Wizard would be nice. I just don't know what they'll call it, because their naming schemes are so like lopsided. Like sorcerer, for example, very generic. But then you have things like Dragon Knight, where it's like, you know. And then you have Templar, which is, okay, you know, pretty generic. But then you have things like Necromancer, which, you know, I guess, you know, honestly, Necromancer is pretty normal. But then you have things like Nightblade, which is like very specific naming-wise, like Templar, Warden, generic, Nightblade. What? You know, like, imagine if the Nightblade was named, like, Assassin class, you know? Like, stuff, I think it would just make, like, a little bit more sense. But then it wouldn't also go to, like, the whole hybridization and play how you want type model too. But sometimes their names I always find very interesting. I wish they would add a bonus to one-hand shield passives. Without a shield, you boost your damage still holding out for bludgeoning skill line. Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll do something like that. I don't know. I think we're going to get a whole new class, and then probably they'll just tweak all the other classes like they always do. A Banshee. I just think that they're going to go more magical. I do think that like a Monk or a Bard are very cool options, and they still could be, but I think they're going to have a lot more magical flavor to them than normal. Sorks have been, because you got to think too, their whole point with hybridization is that you can be both mag and stamina. So they're going to probably make something that has both the ability to have a lot of cool magicka abilities and stamina abilities. Sork should have been named something like Dark Conjurer or Summoner or something that leaned a bit more into the skill lines. Sorcerer is kind of generic. Agreed. Same with Templar, too. That's one of my biggest complaints with like their naming scheme is like some of them are very generic and some of them are normal. Have you seen Deltia's 2023 prediction? So I have not, but I've seen the thumbnail for it. And I do agree with him based on what his thumbnail is. I think that spellcrafting is definitely a very good concept. But I don't know. I just don't know. I think that it's going to be something that has both magicalness, like deep into magic, but also deep into stamina too. If you were to start a new character right now, what class, race, and role would you go for? I would probably make an Imperial something. I think Imperials are the best universal race for, you know, if you just want to use them as a crafter or like a quest doer, they get naturally more gold. They've got really good pools for, actually I can show you what their passives are. I think I have an Imperial. Now, what class I would make them, I have no idea. I have an Imperial, I do. Let's see, here's an Imperial Necromancer. This guy's a werewolf, I believe. You need our guidance, the tables have turned. It's true, I do. This guy has 0 available skill points. You can tell I didn't take him places. Yeah, so increase your gold gain by 1%. I actually think this was nerfed from 2 or 3%. But this is actually just very helpful because, like, it's just nice to do daily quests on them because you get more gold from doing things. Toughness, max health, always good for PvP content. And then max stamina, always good. And then a reduction to the cost of all your abilities is good. Wouldn't necessarily make like a Magicka class with this because you can get this very similarly with other things. But you got to consider too that if you combine this with a set that gave you like a lot of Magicka, like you could have a ton of max health, max stam, and a reduction to cost abilities. So I don't know what class I would do, but I would definitely pick an Imperial. Could be a monk class with chi abilities. I think that they could do that, but I think it would be less of a monk at that point. Maybe some sort of spiritual based class, like a Alien worshiper or Stendar worshiper at that point. And how's it going, Spicy Ghost? Or combine two different classes to form a new one. I actually think that that's kind of what they'll do, because they want us to be able to play in both Magicka and Stamina versions of classes. So what's the easiest way to do that? Easiest way to do that is to have both like a very strong Magicka and a very strong Stamina variant. Something like that could be good, because it could have like dark abilities and it could have light abilities. It could have both Magicka, it could have both Stamina. And we have the ability to pick from two classes which combine to give us a new character under the model what's going to be. Yeah, I don't know how they would do. I don't know if they would do anything like that, because I think that they do like the idea of players coming in and making whole new characters, like, just unfortunately speaking, realistically. But what I would say though is that pretty much every class is viable still. So that's where I have at least a little faith. Imagine adding multi-classes as a feature. I don't think that they would do that, unfortunately. Just because I think that would add too much complication into things, like what should you combine and all these other things that, kind of go along with that. On its surface though, I think it's cool, but I think that adding new things would be better. For example, I think it would be much cooler if instead of doing that, they added a new tree line to each, thing here. So instead of, for example, the Dark Magic, Daedric Summoning, and Storm Calling, they had, two new ones here. A DK or Sword Cloak. Yeah, it's true too. The PvP imbalances would be ridiculous if you were able to combine classes. Plus, two, imagine even a Nightblade Sorcerer. Imagine being able to streak and then being able to combine it with the ganking abilities and the movement of the Sorcerer mixed with the stealth of the Nightblade, or the tankiness of the Sorcerer and the movement of a Sorcerer mixed with like the just absolute carnage that a Dragon Knight could do. Wardens would finally be able to do things that aren't strictly boring like they always are. It would be very interesting. I just don't think that they would go that mostly on their new project, or is ZeniMax focused on making ESO incredible? So to answer that question, what I would say too is that I think that ZeniMax is fighting a balance in the player base of what do people want. And I think that for so long, they thought that the best business model, for example, is to give us something like Northern and then Southern elsewhere. And, 2 zones, there's hundreds of quests in these zones. There's whole new areas that they're building and whatnot. But I think that was the wrong approach. I think that what they should have done is kind of like when they were doing in Western Skyrim. Even though they did add the Reach in the same year, they added something like Antiquities, which was a, meta-shaking good addition to the game. And even in Northern and Southern elsewhere, they added a class. I think with the addition of the card game, and then High Isle and Galen, it just didn't receive well, because I think the focus was too much on the story. And while I do think the story was good, people don't necessarily care about the story, just speaking realistically, because when you had zones like Western Skyrim and the Reach, okay, a lot of people didn't play the story, but if you like the story, there was a good story for you, you could enjoy it. If you enjoyed the antiquity system and being able to get mythical items, that was there for you. If you wanted a new trial, that was there for you. If there was a new arena, that was there for you. So I think this more broad approach of adding endgame content, new features, as well as one new zone will be a nice appeasement of both players. because I think that that gives everyone what they want. Whereas in High Isle and Galen, I think a lot of people didn't get what they wanted. And I think that that's because Tales of Tribute is really not essential to the game, because, you know, they had an option. They could have done one of two things. They could have locked endgame gear or mythicals or legendary items behind it, but then that would have felt, you know, kind of pay to win, you know, for people who did it. And Tales of Tribute is obviously a difficult game. Do you really want your player base to feel like they have to understand it? Okay. Well, the biggest reasons to play it are furnishings, and once you have those furnishings, you know, do you still have a purpose to play it? Yeah, we give you a lot of transmutes, but are those transmutes really worth playing the card game for? And I think that that's the problem that they've run into, is that they don't know how to balance Tales of Tributes as rewards, and that's where it really fell flat. But I think it's good that it Tales of Tribute. You know, people probably would have ripped their hair out. Personally, story isn't important to me since I don't remember them anyway. And I think, Steven, you've hit upon a great point, because people play the game for so many different reasons that I think they sometimes get in the habit of trying to appease all these different people, but on a very surface level. I think that this 2023 roadmap, with its focus more on the mid to end game, will actually be a more well-received balance from what they've done previously and anything else. I don't see why they didn't add a money betting system and just like generic card games as well, blackjack, poker, etc. Probably something to do with gambling laws, but hey, that is actually why. That's, for example, why K-Pro, it was removed from Pokemon. You're not allowed to actually do that, ironically. What I wish they would do, if they were going to do something like that, is, I don't know if they're allowed to do this, but I would like to see like an arena. Maybe they could have actual players fight each other, and people could gamble on who would win. You know, I think that would be kind of cool, and there could be like a scale tier system, you know, for those players. I know that they're trying to revamp, I believe, 2023. Then maybe in 2024 they could really revamp, you know, the Imperial Cities, Cyrodiil, add more battleground features too, and stuff like that. I think an arena system would be honestly very, very cool. I just don't know if they would go for it or not. But that would be my suggestion. And I do plan to go to the meet and greet that they're hosting in spring, so I'll just write down my ideas for them on a piece of paper for us. I have been reached out to by the developers before, so I have chit-chatted with them. I recommended my suggestions for the non-combat pets, but I was shot down because of the companions already being in the game. Thank you for the subscription, Tyler Lowry. I don't know why your thing didn't pop across the screen. That's kind of my point on like what I think that they should do. That's why I don't think that ZeniMax is necessarily in like coasting mode. I think that their mindset of what they added was just misplaced, because really, if up to the point of High Isle / Galen, I mean, Blackwood added companions. That was pretty well received. Added antiquities. That was well received. Somerset added jewelry crafting. That was very well received. You know, I think that they did. It's not like they did a terrible job. Even Gold Coast, Dark Brotherhood was awesome. Hughes Bane, Thieves Guild, that was freaking amazing when it came out. I think that if High Isle and Aminos just had like one or two different things or additions, or if it was just High Isle but they added the new class, or it was just High Isle and there was just something new like an arena or like a 1v1 dueling system or something more for mid to end game players, because the card game just isn't worth doing. You can get some decent gold from it, but like you can get gold from anything. 1v1 arena would be sick. Finally get rewards for duels. Exactly. Dragon Shot class would be the best option to bring in new players. I think, yeah, you're right in that it would give them something to kind of tie in to Skyrim. The reason why you can't necessarily do that for lore reasons is that if you're Dragonborn, then you should be the Emperor. And I think the next Dragonborn that gets born is Talos, and he's the one that reunifies the Empire. So from a lore perspective, I don't know if they'd let them do that. Do you have any suggestions on how to make the areas on the ground from enemies' attacks easier to see? So a lot of people will go in and they'll change the color. I believe it's in combat. I could be way off base here. Is it not in combat? Is it in freaking like visuals or something stupid? Probably is. It's somewhere in here. Who memento? Oh, is it in gameplay? Yeah, it's in gameplay. You can like make this slightly pinker. Mine's a little bit pinker, makes it easier to see. Hey yo, how's it going, John? Agreed. If we had systems that were more relevant to the players, then Tales of Tribute people wouldn't be half as mad about High Isle. Well, you don't need to be Dragonborn to shout. You could just do it from the Greybeards. That's true, too. They could do something like a Greybeards type class. No, you know. Very similar to monks, the Greybeards were. You know? Do you have any suggestions? Or, never saw it. Answered that. Here's guide thing. Mahuzen. Oh, I guess I have a, how to change your settings. I'll just toss it in there, make sure I remember. But as far as like ESO dying and all that other mumbo jumbo, I'm probably a little bit biased in this because I play ESO for fun and I enjoy it, but ESO is not dying. I don't think the developers don't care. I know it's very sensational to claim that it is, and I could probably make a video called like ESO is dying and probably make like $100+ from it, but one, I don't think it's true. Like, even with like people making videos about Bethesda workers unionizing, like, okay, what is that going to change? You know, so that's where I don't think that there's like, yeah, okay, you can cover it, but let's say I was making a YouTube video right now and all I knew is that Bethesda workers and ZeniMax were unionizing. Do I think that that means that ZeniMax isn't going to care about their projects? ESO is like one of ZeniMax's only things, so they don't have anything else they could really be doing. Unionizing isn't a bad thing. The previous job I used to work at unionized and nothing changed, really. Literally nothing changed. The union sucked, but I just don't see, like, videos like that don't really rise to the level, in my opinion, of being like evidence for death or evidence for, you know, needing me to cover it, because, you know, I just don't think it's worth it, and I don't think it's helpful for you. Like, my point as a content creator for a specific game should be to make you want to play that game, not make you upset about it, not make you fearful that because the ZeniMax employees, or not even ZeniMax, the Bethesda employees feel like they're being underpaid, that somehow is going to lead to you guys not being able to play ESO anymore. They can finish opening in the world and give us other content. Exactly, Timothy. I think that's the big piece. One zone, one major change to PvE, one additional huge piece of content, which will probably need a new class. Focus on upgrading the servers, zones every year to kind of do that for us. That's my ranting about ZeniMax, is I just don't think that it's... I also don't think it's fair. Like, so... Imagine you're a YouTube content creator and you read an article attempting to unionize. You're going to turn that into an 8-minute YouTube video about the Elder Scrolls. In my opinion, at least. I know that people also live off their YouTube revenue, so they have a tendency to try to cover as many things as possible. And to some extent, I don't fault them for that. But again, the goal should be to help foster your ability to want to play it. I assume if you're here, you like the game, you want to learn more about the game, you enjoy the game, so that's kind of my bias in that. I stopped watching a few YouTube channels due to all the doom and gloom in the fall. I enjoy playing. I don't need doom and gloom. I can read the news if I want. Exactly. Exactly, Jeff. And if you're like me, you work a job, and then you come home, and you play Elder Scrolls Online, and you want to be happy when you play Elder Scrolls Online. Who wants that? Good morning, Craig. Like, who wants to go and play a game and feel like, oh, you know, it's the beginning of the end? Like, no. Plus, also, with how relevant Sky, it's a massive IP. If Fallout 76, for the love of God, can survive and become a good game, the Elder Scrolls Online is going to be kept alive and kept going. As long as Elder Scrolls 6 does well, and then probably 20 years after that, Elder Scrolls 7, you know, so that's my opinion on it, at least. But I do have to start get crack-a-lacking on the new player's guide. You guys gave me a ton of good suggestions, so if you have more suggestions on what you guys think I should be doing, adding to the new player guide, you know, please put it in the comments below. Please put it in the chat right now as we're kind of winding down here. I also think for some reason my bandwidth is like starting to go out, so I apologize for that. I don't know. I can see the issues the endgame players are facing and hope they fix them, but I feel like I have plenty to explore in ESO and will do for some time. Exactly. It's in the same way. I have so many achievements and things I want to do that, you know, I don't run out of things to do. I'm one of the people who avoid hate videos. I love playing and want to see helpful content. I'm on Xbox Series X for playing ESO. The game crashes 3 to 5 times at startup, then it settles down. I have rooted and installed the game several times. Which sauce can fix that? So I have the Series S. I don't think I've ever had that problem before. The only people I know who've had similar problems are people who play on like the EU server on NA, like they live in North America. But I don't know. I've never heard of that problem before. I would submit a ticket and then see like what the problem is, because you guys have seen me start up the game. I've never had issues. Now, my Mac Studio sometimes will freaking lag me, which can be relatively annoying because I paid for this thing to not lag. I paid like more than I've ever made in YouTube revenue for this thing, so I was hoping that it would pay off, but it is still lagging a lot sometimes. I'm on NA servers. I would submit a ticket just to see if you've got some weird thing going on. I've had the same bug. Seems to be Xbox specific. I can usually fix it by clearing the cache when it starts happening. Hope that helps. I did used to have that problem on Ark Survival Evolved, and clearing your cache does seem to help with those types of problems, especially if you play other games that are like require a lot of RAM. Excuse me. Any other suggestions though for content for new players that I should be adding into the new player guide? We get crack-a-lackin' here on that bad boy. Detail on the monster of ESO. What do you mean on the monster? Like monster sets? Oh, I see what you mean. I gotcha. And I'll have to see like what time length I get to. Like what I'm thinking is if the video starts to become like gregariously long, what I might do is like kind of like sort out what I think is like a new player guide versus like what is like a mid to end game player type thing, and then I think I might just make a guide for that. That way this video doesn't become too long. Explain the classes for new players. I think that's a good point. There are quite a lot of monsters, Timothy. There are quite a lot of monsters, but I think it could be something to highlight. I'll probably get a lot of flack too for the video that I make, because I'll probably start off being like, just be whatever class and race you want, man. Follow your heart. And then people will probably be like, they'll parse 52% lower due to the quantum levels of being the wrong race and being the blah, 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 blah. Would love to see a pickpocketing thieving video, especially on good routes to run for gold. I do have something similar to that, Ewan, already. But I would suggest, just quickly before we wrap up, at people. Oh, I see what you mean, like delves, world bosses, you know, public dungeons and stuff too. I talk about that in the zone guide. But this is the best spot for pickpocketing and getting a lot of stolen stuff. Obviously, pickpocket twice, blade of woe once. There's like a ton of people on this dock that are all facing because they're fishing. So you just yank them twice and then blade of woe once, and then you just run back around the dock again and you're good to go. Oh my god, you made a Redguard sword kill, never hit endgame. It's true. I have a Redguard Nightblade, and I still get comments to this day about it. They say that race only affects upwards of like 5k DPS anyway, so like kind of like what D&D does. Makes sense. Honestly, I do wish people would stop trying to min-max their characters. It seems like it's just becoming 2 or 3 different characters. Agreed. I play 70% Dark Elf because they're just cool. Exactly. Too many min-maxers out there. 5% does. 5k does. Yeah, I think the difference between races is about a 5k DPS swing. Like if you're the best race versus the worst one. Basics of combat gone over in the tutorial are easy to forget and breeze over. Face tanking through the game is relatively intuitive. Going through mechanics really quick does help a lot of people. Or can we do it how I like to do with the older Elder Scrolls? Do a questionnaire on YouTube, and when they give their answers, their answers match the class. I think that'd be cool. All my characters are Dark Elves and High Elves. The best fits them. 5k DPS is enough to be shunned in many endgame groups. True. But like what I'm saying though, Jeff, is like you're gonna be able to do significantly more or less DPS based on how good you are at clicking buttons, what sets you're wearing, and at the end of the day, you can use a racial token too. Like if you really had to, you could do it. Plus 5k is the difference between the best and the worst. It's not like the difference between the best and the second best. You know what I mean? You a dirty high elf player. You could do a breakdown, new player guide into what to do first 10 levels and what to go after level 10. Yeah, I think what I'll do though is I'll talk more about like the zones and stuff like that. How's it going, Seb? We are winding down though, Zeb. We're talking about basically the new player guide, what we're going to be adding in there. You guys have given me about a list of like 25 different things, so I'm going to try to condense it. 100% of my characters are Nor vampires because I love role playing, even though vamps are useless for me. What I would say though too is that vampires are actually relatively good. Stage 3 vampire with undeath is very good for both PvP and PvE. Thanks for the follow, Zeb. Race is probably the most flex thing about meta builds. It doesn't make as much difference as the other part of the build. True. If you're wearing Pillar of Nirn versus Kinraz, if you're keeping it procced, if you're wearing the newest yada yada trial set, if you're wearing the perfected version of a trial set, you know, suggestions, please put them in the comments below. I'm French. Well, je ne peux parler au français. I don't speak French anymore. I'm sorry. Comment ça va? Et tu? Salut. I don't know why I feel like the name, I have to sound different. I could just say it with my American accent. I have a lizard man DPS Sork. I catch crap in dungeons sometimes. Go heal, dude. Get good. LOL. You'll always catch flack from people in the world. You know, you can't worry about what other people think. You can only worry about yourself. Thank you, Sumo, for rating me. I don't know how much longer I will be going, so I'll be getting off here in just a moment. But thank you guys, those who tuned in on YouTube and Twitch. I plan to finish the video on the new player guide today. The whole point was to very good speak French, my friends. Hopefully it was good. if they're going PvP or PvE to help build their classes. I think it's true, but I think with the armory, it's pretty flexible. I tell people that, oh, and I just lost my poster. Well, rip. All right, well, I guess I'll go fix that. But if you guys have any other suggestions or anything while I fix problems, because I am so tired of having all this RAM and 600 megabytes of internet per second to lag on stream, so I'm going to fix that, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.